Now, the camera that I'm going to be talking about today is the Sony FX3. It is the camera that I firmly believe is one of the best systems to be using right now in 2024 as a wedding filmmaker. Full disclaimer, this is just one filmmaker's opinion and based on my own personal experience using this camera. That means this is certainly subjective, and this video isn't meant to influence you or sway you to lean one way or the other. It's really just to offer perspective. And for those that are looking for more information on this particular camera or considering switching over from the dark side, hopefully this video can help guide you to that decision for yourself. Number one is form factor. Now, I'm sure you've heard a lot of people discussing the FX3 and its form factor, but let's dive into why it's a perfect design for wedding filmmaking. For one, it's compact and lightweight, making this an ideal choice for videographers, like myself, who like leaving a small footprint throughout the day. Cameras like the C70, C100s are great options that do produce beautiful results, but tend to create more strain, not just on the filmmaker, but on the guests as well. I've seen in real time the difference between using a big, bulky cinema rig-like setup versus a low profile setup like the FX3. And there is a clear difference in how guests react when a huge camera is pointed at them versus a smaller, discreet one. The ideal is to really blend in on the wedding day. And when you have these elaborate, huge rigs that tend to give you more deer in the headlights than genuine reactions, that's where it may be problematic. And for me, I want to be incognito on the wedding day. I want a setup that leaves that small footprint that doesn't create any barriers between creating and genuine reactions. And that's where the FX3 really shines with especially the capabilities that is inside this camera. And the beauty of it all is it's very versatile. So if you wanted to turn it into a big, bulky cinema rig-like setup, you can still do that, making it super versatile in how you need to use it for your own work. Imagine delivering your beautifully crafted wedding films with a platform that not only showcases your work in stunning quality, but also enhances your client's experience from the moment they hit play. And client experience is so important to me, which is why I use VidFlow. VidFlow is so much more than a video delivery platform. It's a way to not only elevate your brand, but impact your couple's first-time experience in a powerful way. A few reasons why I love VidFlow. Their seamless delivery, which lets you share your films instantly with a simple, personalized link. Stunning presentation, because first impressions matter, by ensuring your films look the best they can through a customizable gallery that truly reflects your brand. And couple convenience, by allowing your couples to access their film on any device, anywhere, at any time. With VidFlow, you're not just delivering a film, you're delivering convenience, joy, and a lasting impact that your couples deserve. Use my code WAYWARD at checkout to receive 20% off an annual membership so that you can start elevating your client experience today. Number two is the image quality. Now, the image quality that you can achieve out of the FX3 really is a thing of beauty. 4K, 422, 10-bit recording, log or Rec 709 profiles really make coloring footage from this camera a truly enjoyable experience. Versus past Sony cameras where color grading was a bit of a nuisance. It was a bit of a very strenuous process trying to match colors, especially with other camera models and things of that nature. It was not as good as it is now, which is why I gravitated to Canon early on in my career, because Canon's color science, as we all know, is just really, really good. But I will say, once I switched from the Canon R6 to the A7S III, it felt like the biggest upgrade that I've ever done in my career. For one is the camera didn't overheat after 5 minutes of use, especially in 4K at 10-bit. But another reason was because the colors right out of camera with using the Sony A7S III was really good and drastically improved from past models. And then of course, a host of other features that I'm gonna dive into. But for anyone just getting started in filming weddings, you really can't go wrong with starting with the FX3 because of the low effort involved in getting a beautiful image right out of the box. Number three is button layouts and customizations. Sony really is king when it comes to giving the creator the option and opportunity to create their own unique workflow inside the camera. Features like the ability to record with the shutter button, emphasize record display, which gives you a big red border, letting you know that you are indeed recording, and there's no more guessing, there's no more fear and dread and anxiety when you capture a beautiful moment and then you look on your screen and you realize you weren't recording. The FX3 really gives you less room for error in those situations, and that to me is just such a beautiful feature. And then working in log is a lot less intimidating than previous models because of LUT support and even Sony's built-in Gamma Display Assist feature. And then of course the beautiful Cine EI, which is one of my favorites because it allows you to shift your dynamic range to get an extra stop in the shadows or the highlights. And one of my favorite customizations of all inside the FX3 is turning the ISO button on top to a base ISO switch. This is where you can click to take your ISO from one base to the other without having to cycle through each one individually. Super useful feature in my opinion, and gives you a lot less to worry and think about as you're creating through the day, along with so many other ways to really customize and create an efficient workflow inside your camera, which has always been a huge selling point of Sony's and why I truly believe that a lot of filmmakers are gravitating more towards Sony cameras over Canon and Panasonic. Of course, there's a lot of other reasons involved too, but that is a big one. Number 4 is zero compromises. From my experience with Canon, Panasonic, and even older Sony cameras as a wedding filmmaker, we were always dealing with compromises when it came to how we create. Whether that was dealing with overheating issues, inconsistent colors, crop factors while recording in 4K 60, 8-bit versus 10-bit, autofocus issues, codec limitations, or lack of variety with third-party lenses. The FX3 really has zero compromises in my experience so far. When it comes to codecs, you have options between 10-bit or 8-bit. The autofocus works great even with third-party glass. In-body stabilization is still decent with third-party lenses. Yes, it's going to be more efficient with native glass, but in my opinion, it's still not really a compromise. And I've been using third-party glass for the last few years and everything's been working great. You can use all the filming modes to their max capabilities, unlike previous models where I was certainly limited and constantly compromising how I create certain situations. And because of those limitations, it caused me to miss certain moments, or not capture them in the way that I really hope to. And not to mention the vast selection of lenses that you can choose between third-party and native glass. I think the biggest thing between these manufacturers is Sony has just been making filmmaking a lot more accessible, especially when it comes to versus companies like Canon, where you are limited with certain crutches in new releases and you're limited to their lens selections that are insanely expensive and not realistic for the frugal filmmaker or someone who's looking to kickstart their filmmaking career without going into debt. Now, don't get me wrong, RF glass is expensive for a reason. I mean, they are beautiful lenses. And if you have the money to invest and you are just loyal to Canon or loyal to one brand, or you've just invested so much already into one brand versus the other, there's a lot of things that go into your decision and your choices in the gear that you consider. But for my opinion, when it comes to Sony versus Canon, and I'm gonna say it, I think Sony's just better than Canon because of the accessibility factor and innovation and reliability, versatility, options. I mean, you have endless options when it comes to Sony. And no, they're not paying me to say all this stuff. This is just my own opinion, so don't come at me, bro. My main point to this is you can get by and create beautiful end products, beautiful films with a lot less. You don't have to go into debt nowadays just to create a beautiful film. Sony is just a much more frugal and high quality choice, in my opinion, for wedding filmmaking. And last but certainly not least is ease of use and reliability. Now, in my experience, the FX3 is just one of those cameras that doesn't require a ton of knowledge going into it. Yeah, you should know the basics of exposure and white balance and frame rates, what codec gives you the best quality, all that jazz. But in terms of going from Canon to Sony or Lumix to Sony, from my experience, the transition was super seamless and the camera itself has been extremely reliable and easy to navigate, especially with this being my first Sony cinema camera. And I think what really makes this camera great is not just everything I mentioned, but all the other features as well that checks off the boxes for me and what's most important for my work. Number 1, just being small, lightweight, compact, leaving a small footprint on the day. Number 2, just being a reliable camera to use. 4K, 10-bit, 60 FPS is really all I need for my work, but I know this camera can shoot 120 frames per second at 4K and even 240 frames per second at 1080, especially for those that need higher frame rates for whatever you are doing. 3, beautiful ergonomics, button layouts with customizations to fit your workflow. Number 4, zero compromises when it comes to creating a beautiful end product without cause for concern or hesitation. And last is a host of features such as dual SD card recording, Cine AI, the ability to attach a top handle with XLR inputs, ease of use, and seamlessly navigating the intimidation factor that log has previously presented itself in past models, and makes this new barrier of filmmaking a lot more accessible to someone who's jumping ship from Rec 709 to log and juggling those new avenues of color grading and expanding your image's dynamic range. So overall, I think the Sony FX3 is one of the best cameras for filming weddings right now in 2024. For me, it just checks off all of my boxes. The only box that it doesn't check off is the fact that it doesn't have built-in NDs. But to conclude my thoughts on this, when it comes to cameras now today, you can really close your eyes, point to a camera on a shelf, and you can really capture anything beautifully because everything is just so good nowadays. 8 years ago, one of the biggest complaints for a lot of us in the wedding video space was the fact that we didn't have internal 10-bit recording, or we didn't have the ability to shoot in 4K 60 without a 1.5 times or more crop factor. We didn't have dual SD card recording. It felt like the truly dark days of filming weddings back then. But nowadays, all those features are just standard. They come built in with any new release, so there's a lot less that we have to worry about. And the only thing that we really complain about now is, hey, is the autofocus good? Can I use third-party glass? Is it's gonna be able to not break the bank? Does it have good IBIS? What's the form factor look like? All of these things. So no matter what new camera comes out, we're gonna find something to complain about. But hopefully this video was helpful and valuable in some way, especially if you're considering switching systems or you're looking for an upgraded Sony camera, or you're just getting started into weddings. Thanks so much for watching this video. Drop a comment below. Let me know what you think the best camera is for filming weddings in 2024. I'd love to hear from you guys. So until next time, keep creating and telling beautiful stories. Peace.